Next up, we have standing quad stretch. So this is the thing that I mentioned at the beginning, that you might want a step ladder or something to put your leg around. So I'm going to show you the exercise. You might want to pause the video and find something suitable that you have at home. But this works well for me. You might want to put it near to a wall or a chair or something if you need to have a little bit of support and balance. So the overall exercise looks like this. So we're going to be standing in front of the thing that we have, and we're going to be tucking our leg up over the thing that we have. So we're putting our sort of foot on the thing behind us. I need to do this exercise more because I'm not very good at it. It is not as simple as this. It's not as simple, as just doing this, because there's a lot of things that we have to think about with our pelvis and our knees and our feet as we put ourselves into this movement, as well as our lower back. I'm going to talk you through this from the side first, and then I'm going to walk you through it from the front. So when you are standing side on, you want to make sure that your knees are in alignment with one another. So I don't want it to be that my left knee is further forward than my right, or vice versa. I don't want the left knee further back than the right. The knees are staying level, which is where you might want your walling, because it's going to be a bit more difficult to balance. And it's as if I have my left leg down, the alignment would be the same. So everything from my left knee upwards stays in alignment with the right hand side, but I'm just tucking that left knee away. You can see from the side here, and this is why I need to do this exercise more, how I'm flaring my rib cage and arching my lower back, and that is because my hip flexors are tight. So what we are looking for is not only to keep the knees in alignment with one another, but we're looking to tuck the pelvis under into a more posterior position, or a position of flexion. So as I tuck the pelvis under, I lengthen my lower back and I create more of a stretch here at the front of the hip. So if I do what my body wants me to do, which is a bit like this, although this is slightly exaggerated, I'm not feeling a hip stretch at all. I feel like a bit of compression in my mid to lower back because it's compensating. So I've got to pivot my pelvis backwards to create length at the front of the hip, and that changes my lower back and my ribcage position. I'm standing like this, and I'm tucking that sort of glute pelvis under on that side. On my other standing leg, I'm tightening the quad. As I put myself in this position, I'm being really careful that I'm not swinging one side of my pelvis further forward than the other. So my body really wants to twist my right hip forwards, and I have to make sure that I'm staying level at the front here, and that one side of the pelvis is not coming further forward, and that the knees are also staying level. I'm trying to tuck the pelvis under as much as I can, and as you get better and better at this, you'll be able to have something that's higher and higher to put your foot closer to your bum. I'm not going to go any higher than this because I don't even feel like I'm barely doing it. I'm doing it well enough as it is at the moment, so I'm not going to go any higher than that. From the front, what I also want you to be sure of is that your feet are parallel when you start off, and obviously imagine that the thing is behind me right now as I do this, that you're not shifting your right leg to get yourself there. So you might have the middle of your second and third toes, ankle, knee and hip all in alignment. So we don't want to be starting like that. We're starting with the foot in alignment with the hip. And you might notice that as you take your left knee up, that you want to shift with that right leg. Don't let that happen, or if it does happen, you've got to bring that right foot back into alignment so that the standing leg is stabilizing in the correct way. The other thing to watch out for is that when you put yourself in this position, not only are we looking for kind of pelvic rotation in this plane of movement, we're looking for a pelvic hike. So you might notice that as you lift your leg, or it's probably more likely to be that way, as you lift your leg, one side of the pelvis is higher than the other, which is not what we want to do either. So hands on hips, bring the pelvis down so that it's level from the front view. When you're looking down, it's not swinging forwards, and the knees are also in alignment with one another, and that foot hasn't shifted. We are going to do 1 minute on each leg. So my feet are parallel as I begin. I'm close to the wall just in case I need a bit of support. I'm watching that my right foot doesn't shift as I lift my left leg up onto my chair like so. I'm looking down at my knees and trying to keep them in alignment with one another. And I'm watching my pelvis to make sure that my hips do not come one further forward than the other or one higher than the other. I then am active through this back foot because it just helps me get a little bit more support there. I tuck my pelvis under to get the stretch through the front of the hip and the pelvis, and I'm going to stand here for a minute once I've got my stopwatch working. Off we go. I'm squeezing the quad of my right leg to help kind of stabilize that movement. So squeezing the thigh muscle of the right leg, continually tucking under through that left pelvis and almost pushing forward slightly through the pelvis to create more of a stretch there. The foot stays active, my rib cage isn't flaring, I'm long through my lower back, and I'm really watching that the knees stay in alignment with one another, as with the hips and the pelvis. So we're lengthening the hip flexors here, getting the hip into extension, changing the kind of calibration and interaction of the muscles around the pelvis and around the hips. Ten seconds left. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And then we swap sides. I'm going to swap my thing around so that you can see me from both directions, but obviously you don't need to do that. So same thing goes. I know I'm going to find this side harder because my left leg is more unstable, my right hip is tighter. So watching that I've got my feet parallel, the toes not wider than the ankles. I'm taking my right leg up onto the thing without shifting my left foot. Whole different story this side. There's loads of wonkiness going on. So I'm going to take the time to position myself so that my knees are level. So I'm going to walk my left foot forward slightly so that my knees are level with one another, watching that my right hip is not sneaking forward like it wants to, and I'm making sure that I feel like I'm kind of pushing down through that right pelvis so that it doesn't hike, which it also wants to do. Tucking under through the right pelvis to make sure I have that length in my lower back and I'm not flaring and arching, and I feel the stretch through the front of the hip, which is helped by the action of the foot, the pushing forwards and under of the pelvis, and sort of pushing backwards slightly with your knee. That should make you feel the stretch. So another minute here. Off we go. Trying to keep knees and hips in alignment with one another. I'm getting all sorts of wobbling and stuff going on, which is good. I definitely need to do this one more. I'm feeling it kind of in my calves a bit, in my hamstrings, and the effort of keeping the pelvis tucked under is also keeping my glutes firm as well as I stretch out the front of my hip. Making sure that the pelvis isn't rotating and the hip isn't hiking. We've got 20 seconds left. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And that is standing quad stretch.